your podcast, covering all things open division and contenders, the path to pro for Overwatch League. And here are your hosts, Thornrayne and Kyle Wynn. And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Blackwatch Profiles. With us tonight is Ash Chulong from Envision Esports, and as always, my co-host Kyle Wynn. How you doing, Chu?
Doing good, thanks. Thanks for having me on, inviting me.
Oh,
How are you guys doing?
Thank you for coming on. I know you guys have a really busy week. Semifinals in a matter of just days away in Poland. So you have to be going through a lot of stress right now.
A little bit. I guess it just depends how you approach it as a team. In general, I think we're all just really excited to get back on stage more than anything.
Oh yeah. How you doing tonight, Kyle?
I'm good as always.
Fantastic. So just gonna do a little bit of quick history on you. Kyle, why don't you take our first question of the
Cool. So, Chu, obviously we know that you are now very knowledgeable in Overwatch, but I'm kind of just wondering what other games you played previously. Or have you always been like around shooters? Were you one of the people who came over from like MOBAs like Dota or League or stuff like that? Like, what kind of games did you kind of start out with and get you to Overwatch?
Yeah, pretty much my start was just in League of Legends. About at the start of Season 3, I got to watch the Season 2 World Championships, and I was like, oh my god, esports is a thing. And I got like really into League of Legends. Like tried to go pro somewhat, but I wasn't really that good. I think like my peak is like Diamond 5 or something. So instead I like looked at coaching it. I got like pretty serious in that. I won like an amateur analyst competition that was what's the word? It was like judged by a couple of analysts in the scene. The most notable one was Jarge. You know, he was the analyst for TSM at the time, and I think he's like the analyst and coach for Team Liquid right now. And I ended up winning that analyst competition, and that got me like my foot in League of Legends. And I ended up like working with one or two not challenger teams, but challenger qualifier teams. But yeah, that was like, at that moment in time, Overwatch was like about to be released and there was loads of hype around it. And after trying to work with a couple of those challenger qualifying teams, I realized like it was really hard because obviously there's so many people that are already known and like the scene's super developed already. So I decided to just take a shot at like a brand new game, and I had like a lot more success, and I guess it kind of like just went from there, really.
Cool.
Now, you kind of covered the next question there. Was it just the fact that it was a new game that got you interested in coming into Overwatch, or was there something else that drew you into Overwatch?
It was definitely different. I hadn't been a massive fan of shooters. Like I never really played them seriously. My first like take on serious gaming was League of Legends. But yeah, the concept was really interesting to me. The class system, shooters. And I know CSGO was always like very fun to watch, even if you weren't knowledgeable, even if you weren't competitive or in the scene. Just like putting on a CSGO tournament was always hype. And I kind of had the feeling Overwatch would have similar vibes for like a casual base, a professional base, and like as a spectator and a competitor. I felt like all aspects of the game were pretty entertaining.
Cool. So then, like, was Envision the first kind of team that you were an analyst or a coach for, or have you kind of done the tier 3, tier 4 kind of teams first before you got to Envision?
Yeah, I started out right at the bottom. It was just one day I was like, oh, I'm gonna see if I can coach an Overwatch team. I decided to look in America, in like the North American region, because as I said, like there is a lot of stigma in Europe, and like in terms of the scene in general, like I've had experiences of it being like quite volatile. A lot of like the scandals and stuff back in the early League of Legends days was all the the lower orgs in Europe. So I was like a bit concerned about that. So I wanted to like get my foot in the American scene instead. And the first team I actually ever worked with was a team called Bold Purpose Gaming, which you wouldn't have really heard of unless you like watched AG Weeklies like over a year ago. But one of the players, the first player like I actually got to know and work with was actually Verba from LA Valiant.
Oh,
That was
Okay.
his team, and he was the first player I ever coached. And then that team split up, and from then two of the players from that team went to Hammers Esports before they picked up like the European roster. So Hammers Esports had just started, and I worked with a couple of players from there, and that's when I met the coach Packing 10, and he then left Hammers Esports, and then got me in contact with Crow, who Crow was the current manager of Envision, and then that's how I got on Envision after Hammers Esports.
Oh, nice.
And I think I've been with Envision like a crazy long time, like over a year, right? About 13, 14 months or something.
wow. That's forever in Overwatch years.
Yeah, it's a real long time.
Now, just a little bit more about your coaching. Is coaching like your full-time job, or do you have a 9 to 5 also? Like, what's your work schedule kind of like?
No, I do this full time. Originally, I like tried to fund it while working a part-time job, but my dad was super supportive. He sort of knew this is what I wanted to do, and he gave me the opportunity to like pursue it full time, put in as many hours as possible. So I was really thankful for that. But yeah, I do this full time and have been doing for quite a while.
Really good to hear.
And it's cool
what
to
is
have
your-
the support system like that. That's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
You hear a lot of stories of like my parents were not okay with it. I kind of just walked out, and they didn't trust that I was going to make any money. So it's always nice to hear that like people do have really really supportive parents who like understand that like it's kind of just still not a super solid world to go into, but like there's lots of good potential.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your specific role within the team? Like, do you handle like kind of just everything in terms of like the coaching decisions, stuff like that? Or do you have like a specific niche like scouting enemy play, doing VOD reviews, work on comms, whatever?
It is a little bit of everything, but when you have like 3 members of staff, it's always really important to kind of define your roles. So I'd say the most important one, as vague as it sounds, is assisting our head coach Rufflegater. I kind of like present ideas to him, present information, try and spot as many things during practice that he might be missing. So, for example, if he's working with our frontline, our main tanks, he's working on our shot calling, our ult economy, or whatever, I might pay attention to, maybe our DPS's mechanical play, our decision making, or something, and just present him as much information as I can, and then like hopefully he makes choices or changes. I also do the same thing with our analyst Albion. Like Albion does a lot of our scouting and analysis and stuff, but doc work can usually be like a heavy workload. So usually I like to make sure I'm there to assist him or like give him advice or tell him like what sort of docs would be the most relevant for the team. And then I do lead the majority of our VOD reviews, but that's mainly a collaboration with everyone, depending on what we feel is like the most important. If we feel like Ruffle's been working with like our shot calling and stuff and our communication, and that's the most important aspect of our game right now, we'll just let Ruffle dictate like the next few VOD reviews because he's been paying the most attention to it, and me and Albion will just like help him with notes or whatever. But other than that, yeah, it's just general managing at the moment. I do a lot of like our scheduling. I've obviously been with the organization quite a while, so I'm very familiar with our owner sub and Dan, so I do like a lot of communication with them. And LB is lying in chat. I do help him with docs sometimes. He's a big liar.
Now, you said that you run most of the VOD reviews. That's going to kind of take us into the next question here. Does the team currently have a team house? And if so, are you with the team or are you still in the UK right now?
No, the team currently doesn't have a team house, so we are all remote. And so I currently do still live in the UK. But in terms of VOD reviews, that does make stuff kind of difficult, but you make it work with what tools you have, and haven't had a team house the entire time in Envision, and then we've managed to make playoffs of contenders both seasons. So
Yeah,
we're doing something right.
That's pretty phenomenal, not having that in-person connection with the team and being able to pull off what you guys have been doing.
Yeah, especially with like almost two different rosters for the most part, which kind of brings us into the next question, which is like, obviously you all did well, but not like obviously as good as you wanted to have done in the I guess the first season of Contenders, the previous year. So what kind of prompted this major overhaul of the roster and kind of picking up all of these new people and having people change roles and stuff like that?
Well, it was an interesting scenario because we had a really long-standing roster of McGravy, Fazix, Fire, and Sini. I believe they were on the team together for like 10 months. And then the introduction of Jaru, he was with us for like maybe 6 months at the time before the roster change. And during that period, like obviously the players had long-standing relationships, and there was just like a lot of tension, especially after APAC, and the players had some bad habits, and they already had like a very solidified relationship with each other that like wasn't really gonna change. So if like the roster in general felt like it needed a mix-up, and to be honest, it was like a really tough choice because individually, I didn't feel like any player deserved to like get the boot in terms of performance or like personal opinion of the players. It was just that roster just wasn't going to continue to mesh together. So we had to like decide, who was worth rebuilding the team around. And for me personally, like Jaru's had really standout performances, like online and on LAN. And for me, like I really wanted to keep him involved. And Fire and McGravy just work really well together, and they have like a really solidified style, and their personalities just kind of help each other out in tournament and in practice. So I wanted to keep them three together and potentially work on creating a roster around that personality type.
And was the McGravy switch like from the primary tracer player to Diva? Was that him prompting that, or was that like a coaching decision? Like, hey, I think you have the better personality for a Diva player with the way you call and such and so.
It was mainly his own prompt. It was an interesting choice because we decided at APAC with the roster swap, not the roster swap, but the meta shift as we were prepping for China, like because Sini was our Diva player, but Sini was like an insane Pharah player, so we ended up having scenarios where we had Jaru playing Diva on Koth maps or Jaru playing Diva on Numbani. And so Sini could play like heroes like Pharah and Widowmaker. So we decided to like all in on that like approach. Have Sini as like this specialist flex DPS that could play Widow, Soldier, McCree, Pharah, and we just like we just tested that to see if it was like a really solid approach to the current roster that we had, which put Gravy on the flex tank, and Jaru then swapped to like the tracer role. And in my opinion, those two players in particular had like really decent success. And Gravy just decided to stick with it. I think part of his reasoning was he thought like the talent pool for flex tanks was like really bad, and he thought he could be the best. He could be the best Diva in like NA contenders because he didn't think anyone was good at Diva. But there's a lot of really good DPS players, right? So he felt like he could swap that role, be the best Diva player, and we could just get someone who was just as good or better than him at Tracer. And that was completely his choice. Like it was his idea, and he wanted to do it.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Now just kind of touching on that really quick. Me and Kyle back a few weeks ago, we ranked all of the duos in Contenders because the show only covers Path to Pro, all the tier 3 stuff. and Envision was the only team to successfully get top 3 in the tank line, DPS line, and healing or support core. So you guys are
Nice.
definitely doing a lot of things right, and people are noticing it across the board. But moving into the next question here, you kind of went over a little bit of it. When you guys went with the new roster, what was some of the stuff that you guys were kind of looking at for the new roster, and what went into picking all of the new players for it?
Originally, when we decided to have a big shakeup and like open up the majority of the roster, as the most proven org, I guess, because Envision was the only returning organization in like that was going to return to contenders. All the others got absorbed into owl teams or whatever. We felt like, so to speak, we had like a pick of the litter. As you know, contenders opened, like all these players that want to join a contenders team. We felt like as an organization we've had the most success. We've already had like a roster that's made top 4. So we felt like we had a really good chance of basically approaching any free agent and saying like, look, come join Envision. So like that played a heavy part in our decision to pick up new players. But our biggest like goal with the roster swap was like attitude and mentality. We wanted people with like the same drive as the players we had already, and we wanted like the attitude and approach to like not clash, more like complement each other and have like the same approach to growth. Not being afraid to discuss problems, find solutions. Not really as like a confrontational team, but like a team that isn't afraid to discuss and improve together, because you'll find like a lot of players under high pressure, or when they're like pressured to improve a lot, they might like shut down, or they might not understand or take feedback from their teammates in a way that's like super productive. So we were just looking for like players with like the drive and the motivation to like really learn and grow and become the best team in contenders. So we had like a lot of names already on the list. I think Shiny and Buds were 2 right at the top from the very beginning. We approached them, and we just kind of knew that the team was going to succeed with them together. I'd say Crimzo was the only like super unique one. Admittedly, I personally had never heard of Crimzo. I believe his past is he played on Kongana at some point, but he
for like a month, it seems like.
Yeah. What happened was with all the like the late entries in contenders, with like some of the orgs not really announcing that they were going to have an academy team. So when some of the academy teams came in late, they managed to like snag up some players that were like really really at the top end, because we were trialing Goliath as a big name. Like we were pretty set on Goliath at the time, and we ended up losing out some of our players, and we had to like really quickly look for a new flex support. And one of the first things we did was, should we just check like competitive ladder, see who's like the best flex support on competitive ladder? And we looked, and it was just this dude called Crimzo. We're like, shall we reach out to him? And all the guys were like, absolutely not. Competitive players are not good professional players. And I was like, let's just try him out for one block. And he comes in and he frags super hard, right? And we just immediately pick him up on the spot. He was such like an incredible raw talent that we were so excited to pick up. But yeah, Crimzo's
like Jonak story almost. Like because he was one of those players that I remember right when it was, I think, Contenders Trials, or no, I think right when Contenders kicked off. I never heard the name before, but immediately just like, wow, this guy's getting, headshot, right click, just, making a really good name for himself, like match 1.
Mm-hmm. I remember asking the players' opinions, and Fire, obviously as the Lucia player whose sole purpose is to protect his flex support, I was like, what did you think of Crimzo? And he was like, if he can 1v1 a tracer, he's good. He's fine with me. We were like, sick. So we just ended up going with him, and Crimzo's got a great attitude. He's a really funny guy. And yeah, we were really lucky to find him. And in general, like the 3 that we ended up picking up, Bud, Shiny, and Crimzo, have all been like incredible assets. They've like carried the team individually and in several like matches. It's been it's been really fun.
Nice. And then this could be a not a trap question, but this could be, you know, a question you might not be able to necessarily answer. So like, do you have like a particular like duo, be it tank, support, or DPS, that like has the most impact in your matches or opens up the most room for the other roles to shine as well? Or do you think it's like a solid, like everyone does their part perfectly, so no one has to like carry too much?
It's that is a tough question. I think I'm a really big fan of our backline. I think like Fire proved himself to be probably one of the best Lucios in Contender Season 0. I feel like him and Boink were like out of the top 4 teams, him and Boink were the 2 best Lucios. And I've always been a big fan of Fire, and Fire's continued to grow into like an incredible IGL. And Crimso's like, he's just a great person to work with, and I feel the 2 of them together, like they show like a lot of promise, and I've really enjoyed working with them. And I would say they might have the most impact, but when it comes to tournament play, I think it's hard to ignore Buds and Jaru.
Right.
There's just been too many times where, you know, we might be down like 1 or 2 players, and Buds just gets like too many ridiculous headshots, and the fight's already over. You know, like and Jaru's had like so many moments, especially in this new meta. His ability to pick up Sombra and play like arguably, you know, maybe be one of the best Sombras in this tournament.
Right.
It's just so they're both so impressive, and the way they like work and outplay people is like pretty bonkers.
And that was one of the things that we noticed coming in, is like we knew that this would be Sombra meta for at least this season of Contenders. Obviously up until the newest changes are going through, but like we saw so many teams that just could not do it, that were just constantly feeding. And like Jar was like, my like the poster child essentially for like good Sombra player. Like, this person needs to be more like Jar on the Sombra instead of feeding or whatever. So I definitely feel that.
We had a really tough time from ZP. I remember like watching all of our tournament games back, and ZP just constantly telling us off for running Sombra all the time. But I mean, it was working, man, and Jaru was so good at it. Like Sombra's so busted. I don't know.
And of course, like if you have Buds doing what he's doing, you only need Jaro to not like completely feed. And like if you're being obnoxious and distracting, and then Buds gets 2 headshots, well, Jaro did his job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And they both did that job extremely well throughout the regular season. But speaking of the regular season, and maybe even like the Pit and Beat Invitationals, what team would you say would be your guys' biggest rival or the toughest opponent that you've come across so far?
I'm guessing the answer to that question isn't Chicken Ranch Pizza.
Oh,
they can be.
They were so difficult.
No, I mean, well, Chicken Ranch Pizza now Optic, right?
Right.
They've actually developed into a really solid team. They're like one of our strongest scrim partners. We love scrimming them. But I mean, it has to be Fusion University. We've been playing them in finals. As short as this new chapter in Overwatch has been, like I guess the semi-professional scene or the path to pro scene, I guess. Like we've already played Fusion Uni in 3 finals, plus we played them for first place in our group just the other week. So like we've had a lot of close series, and Fusion Uni are definitely like the team to beat for us every single time. Like we're going to be really disappointed if we go to this LAN in Poland and we don't get that, you know, Envision Fusion Uni grand final.
Right.
And I mean,
well, because like it had always been you two in the finals, and even there was, I forget which one it was, but then you beat them and then kicked them down to the lower bracket. Then they came back, and then you were together again in the finals again.
Yeah.
So it was, you've kind of always been neck and neck.
And so far, you guys are the only team to have beaten Fusion University, if I'm not mistaken.
It might have been one. Let's find out.
In a series, yes. I believe other teams. I mean,
Yeah.
They went 3-2 like in 4 matches, right? This in their groups.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in terms of like an entire series, yeah, I think we're the only team who's done that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I mean, considering they've been touted as like the top of the path to pro right now. I mean, you guys are pretty much neck and neck with them. Like it's gonna be a tight series for sure if we get to see another final with both of you in it. Um, oh, next one is yours, Kyle. Sorry about that.
Right. So obviously, like you're leaving in like a day or two to head on over to Poland to play at Horizon Lunar Colony, essentially. So what kind of preparation have you guys just been kind of scrimming as usual, or you've kind of been kicking it up to 11 to prepare for this?
We definitely like turned it up a notch. Scrims were interesting. We like teams went on break, so we lost like a decent amount of scrim partners. Obviously we couldn't scrim Toronto anymore, so we stopped scrimming Toronto, and other teams have been doing other sorts of boot camps, so to speak. So we did definitely have to change up the way we treat scrims. We had to do put a lot more emphasis on review, and the scrim blocks were more for refinement rather than experimentation. At this point, like we had to use all of our time as preciously as possible. So it's been I guess a grindy process to make sure we're refining all of our strategies. We've put emphasis on versatility, making sure have a couple of curveballs, some stuff up our sleeves, trying not to be like that linear team or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's been an interesting process because Toronto are like boot camping in EU, right? So that's been really interesting for us in terms of how we prep for them, because we don't know if they're going to adopt any European strategy or anything like that.
Which the gate with triple tanky immediately.
Yeah, just play Farah on every single map.
Right.
But yeah, so that's been definitely interesting for us in terms of prep work. So the last time we saw them play a game was like their playoffs match, right? Which was over a month old information. So we just have to make sure our play is as perfect as possible, and just help gotta be ready for anything,
Oh yeah. Now, with the finals so close and the trip to Poland, this is kind of stepping away from the game a little bit. What are you and the team kind of looking forward to doing or checking out up in Poland, outside of getting the matches in and playing, just kind of a touristy thing that you would kind of want to check out?
I'm not sure if we have anything specific planned. For a lot of us, this is our first time meeting our new players. My first time meeting my head coach and my analyst, and meeting Gravy Fire and Jaru again, who I haven't seen since China. So for us, it's more like it's just nice to get back together and see each other again for 5 days, and obviously meet our new players and stuff. So in that sense, I assume might hit a few local bars. Just use it as a time to bond, I guess, really, because I feel like that's definitely important. In terms of sightseeing, really unsure. I think we have plans to go see Infinity War again.
That's definitely a must. I mean,
I know. But yeah, we haven't actually checked out the area. A few of our players and staff are more upper brow, so they might be checking some stuff out for us to go see some sightseeing.
Museums and exquisite art and sculptures and fine wines.
Potentially. This is all interesting to them because my entire team's American, so right. I mean, I'm European, so I'm over it. And there's nothing I need to see. They can all get excited if they want.
Yeah, you're just a hop, skip, and a jump away, basically, and they're flying halfway around the world.
Well, interestingly, our head coach Rafflegater is actually Polish. He has Polish family, so I don't know how much he knows about the local area, but he'll be our tour guide, taking us around, ordering us drinks.
Man, you guys might be the only team that gets a home cooked meal.
Go to some distant cousin's house, yeah. Cool. So kind of another weird question, but I feel like there's probably a really interesting answer to this. Is who would you say your biggest influences on you as a coach is it like Rafflegator, or are there other like Overwatch League, or is it someone back from League of Legends, or like a Phil Jackson kind of character from like professional traditional sports?
I'm not sure. Like influences, I guess I've been following Monte Cristo since I started like getting into League of Legends, and basically following everything he's done, like watching every season of OGN. Be a big fan of him and Thornrayne. I guess like they taught me the nuances of like esports and stuff. That, like even though I wasn't like into professional CS:GO or whatever, I used to always watch like Thornrayne's videos of like how he can extrapolate like a small aspect of like maybe a player's personality or something, and extrapolate into all these theories about how they perform well and stuff. So I got really into storylines and players and player perspective, and that's been like my biggest drive as a coach, I'd say. In terms of over influences, there's one League of Legends. I think he's the current head coach now, but he started out as an analyst. This guy called Veteran. I don't know if you guys know him. He's from the UK, and this is a weird story. My roommate at university was really good friends with him. He played on a COD 4 team together with him, right? And he then started up like, so I got to know him through my roommate, and then I saw him like trying to get into the League of Legends professional scene. I saw him like writing pieces on .esports and stuff, and then eventually he became like the analyst of H2K, and I was like, damn, dude, he like made it. Like he's up there with H2K. Like at the time was one of my favorite teams, and that was like a big motivator for me. Was like you can actually break into the scene. You can actually do it. It's not that hard. Or I mean, it can be hard, but if you're good and you work hard, you know what I mean, you'll get there. I think at the moment he's the head coach of H2K, but yeah, seeing that dude do it and just following Monty's work, being a big fan of how Thornrayne spins his storylines, that's been like the biggest drive for me in how I kind of approach esports in general.
Cool.
Awesome. Now taking us outside of the path to pro, who are you rooting for in the Overwatch League?
Man, well, originally when Overwatch League was first announced, I was a big fan of LA Valiant because one, my boy Numlock, and also my very first player I ever worked with, Verba. I was ready to be rooting for them, and unfortunately they're big bench boys, and I never see them play. So it's like it's kind of hard to root for a team in OWL. I'm also like just really enjoy watching players, like Carpe, Ikua, big fans of Pine and Jonak and Sabiolbi. Also, Ruji Hong, I've liked him for like a long time. I really like my flex supports, and I really like my traces and hit scans. So in general, I prefer like watching players over teams, if that makes sense.
Which I think is like a better way to do it too, because you're not like emotionally invested, so it doesn't like hurt your heart when your team loses. You're now kind of just like you can kind of just see the good plays and the good tactics and kind of.
It hurts my heart every time Fate walks down instead of Numlocked, but other than that,
that's fair.
Other than that, it's all good. I just like watching all the teams, to be honest. I'm personally like a big fan of Bishu and Gladiators. I worked with him a little bit, so I know how he like works as a player. He's just like he's really interesting and he's really like talented in terms of like his communication and stuff. And I know it's like the story spun on the broadcast about how like he live translates for his team, but like just from knowing him and knowing the way he communicates in game, like I know he definitely does that, and I think that's so cool. And I always have to root for Bishu whenever I see him on stage. I think that's just like it's just such an awesome role to see in like a team,
Oh yeah. Now, kind of a side note to this question because of the way you answered. You don't have to give a name, but I've gotten into discussions about the MVP of Overwatch League. And I'm a firm believer that it's going to be a tank player or possibly a flex support, because I think that the tanks and the flex supports do the most for the. What position do you think would be, or a player, if you want to throw out a player name, do you think the MVP is going to land with?
That's interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like super DPS focused, but like seeing players like Dante show up and like be a super massive Sombra carry for his team, like I think that's super impressive. And I mean, I just love Pine so much. Even when he doesn't do well, I just think like he's such a great player. So in terms of like my own voting, I'd just be super biased, even if they deserve it or not. I'd just be like, give it to Pine, man. He's the best. But in terms of like the most impactful role this season, I don't know. I feel like it has to be DPS, right? Because of the amount of Widowmaker. Like, I feel like if the teams didn't have a player that could adopt Widowmaker at that level of play, they were really struggling, you know.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I'd have to look at that Widowmaker spot for me personally. I think that's been my highlight of this season.
Interesting. So we know Nate Nanther is pushing for expansion teams, specifically in EU for the Overwatch League. Is there like a particular city that you would like? Obviously, you know, London's taken up. Is there like another city in the UK you want to see, or maybe somewhere else within Europe?
I think we definitely have to have more branches out in Europe, but honestly, like, I'd like to see, you know, the really high-ranking World Cup teams get a bit more love. You know, we had like Sweden and France in the World Cup finals last year, so if their countries got like a city in the Owl, that would be like more than ideal. We also have like, you know, we have a lot of really talented Finnish players. I believe Russia has like a really good World Cup team, as well as like obviously a lot of popular players like Shadowburn. They have a player on Boston, right? Boston has a Russian player.
Yeah, mistakes. Yes.
Yeah, mistakes. That's the one. And you know, Denmark. Like, if those countries got like a city, an owl team, I feel like those are the most deserving, because we just need more European owl teams in general. And in like those countries just have a lot of talented players. They did well in last year's World Cup, so I feel like they have a good argument for getting a good team, getting a good owl spot, in my opinion.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to UK getting another team if we can actually get UK players in it this time.
Yeah.
just move up those guys. I mean, Hurricanes.
Yeah.
A big
That'd be
fan
awesome.
of those guys.
I'm a big fan of those guys as well. I'm really excited to meet them all at LAN in Poland.
Yeah, that is right. They will be there also. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a fun time. Man, there's going to be a lot of really good teams there. Can't wait to watch the show match. That's going to be fun. Now we're going to move down, getting ready to start wrapping it up. We had one question. Well, we had one person submit 3 questions coming from the Discord. So I'm going to just kind of rapid fire them off to you. Caesar over on the Discord wants to know, being the only team to have beaten Fusion University, what would you say their weakness is?
It's an interesting question. I know what their strengths are for sure. In terms of like their weaknesses, I guess their style's somewhat linear. You know, they struggle to adopt like the summer meta immediately. A lot of their players are really good on one hero. No flame. Genuinely, like, you know, I feel like Zachary's just a bonkers tracer player, and you know, they've got Who Are You that's just insane on Genji. But if you take them off those heroes, get them in uncomfortable spots, I think that's when they start to struggle a bit, because a lot of their strategy, especially when we used to play them, or I'm kind of speaking in the past, I'm not like what we did to prep for them before, was stuff like the way they played around Who Are You was, it wasn't as obvious as like everyone just pocket Who Are You and is going to carry us, but they definitely had like tells when they were playing around him. You know, he gets Harmony Orb more than anyone else. So it was like if you played a style that punished the heroes that they didn't like to play around, in my opinion, like Crackalakin and Zachary, they're kind of like the eyes and ears of the team, and from watching them play, they set up like a lot of their dives and stuff. So in my opinion, like those two, being able to bully, shut them down was like the best approach for us in the past.
Oh, nice. Now, sorry, 1 second.
I guess
No
I'll ask
problem.
this next one just to keep it going. What is needed for Envision to kind of go to the next level? Is it all something that like you kind of know what you need to do in order to kind of win the finals, or is there something else like you think that the team needs?
The next level. At the moment, we're just focused on like player growth. I feel like it's not just for like us as a team, but for every team. Like player relationships is always such a big deal. If your players get on well in and out of game, they perform well on stage. And in terms of like performing well at this LAN, that's definitely our biggest goal. Is just making sure everyone's comfortable. We've got a few LAN veterans on this team, so that makes us feel really good. But for the people that haven't played on stage before, like Crimza, just making sure they feel really good, feel really confident, and I think that's like our key to making sure we succeed on the LAN, succeed on stage.
Cool. And then the final question on this particular community question: where do you see yourself in the near future? Do you kind of see the team kind of splitting off if people start getting picked up by OWL teams, or would you like to just be picked up as like a 6, 7-man, 8-man group of you and all the coaches and all the team for whatever the expansion team would be?
I think that's obviously the ideal scenario. I do like what's the word I'm looking for? Like I constantly tell my players to, work for that goal, because all their goals should be to get an owl. That is like that's their motivation, and whether we do it as a team together, and like an investor looks at Envision and says like I want to pick up this entire roster. That's like obviously the ideal scenario, but all of our players should be aiming to get an owl one way or another. And for me personally, like I don't mind if my team is a stepping stone for my players to progress. Like I've been like there was absolutely zero hard feelings. When Numlock was the only member to get picked up by Valiant, like we were all super psyched, and I feel like that's what Contenders is about. That's what like being a Contenders organization and team is about. We can't all do it, but at least being the stepping stone for however many players, like I have to be proud of that. And that's what matters. For me personally, like that's definitely my goal as well. Like I'm always going to become competitive at heart. And I'm gonna want to be like, I want to be the guy that coaches the #1 Owl team, like season 2 or whatever. Sure. I do have interest in becoming like maybe stepping up to the head coach position. I had the opportunity to do it, but I didn't feel comfortable. I had to step in as head coach towards like during Contenders and during our APAC run, and I didn't feel super ready for it. I was kind of like thrown into it a little bit, and I made a few mistakes, and I still felt like I had a lot to learn in terms of like head coaching a team, which was one of the main reasons why I was so excited to get Rothel on board, because I knew how experienced he was with like Fnatic and stuff. But maybe in like the near future, I'd once I feel like I've learned enough, and feel like a lot more experienced in the scene, is to like apply for like a head coach position, whether it's with Envision, maybe another academy team, or hopefully get the opportunity to approach an analog for sure.
Is there a certain team that like if every single of the 12 teams contacted you with the exact same salary, is there a particular team that you'd like kind of have like a bias towards and like I kind of want to try out this team, or like be it team or coaching staff or support staff or whatever?
I'd take the LA Valiant spot just to put Numlocked on. But in all seriousness, I am a big fan in the way like Gladiators play the game. I'm a big fan of their players. So like, I think as an L team, Gladiators would be probably one of my favorites to work with. Obviously, it's really hard to work with all Korean rosters. I don't speak any Korean at all, so as much fun as it would be to work with Big Boss Pine, I don't think I'd be very efficient. So I'd have to choose. I'd probably go with Gladiators, in my opinion.
Oh wow. Gotta love the shields up.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's definitely my second favorite. I like Fraggy. I like people that swing big hammers. Can't lie about that. But that's going to take us down into the final little bit of information tonight. Do you have any plug shout outs or any shade that you'd like to throw going into the playoffs weekend?
I'm not a big shade guy. I don't think. I'd have to tag Gravy in if I wanted to throw some shade right now. No. Shout outs to you guys, I guess, really, for inviting us on. These talk shows I feel like are really, really good for the scene. Feel like Contenders needs as much love as it can get, and I appreciate everyone who supports like not just the owl scene, but also the Contenders scene. Shout outs to Envision. I think Dan's in the chat, Dan Burgundy. They've just been a great org, and I've been with them for a long time for good reason. They're a really safe place to be. I really enjoy working for them, and yeah.
Oh no, that's awesome, and thank you for coming on. Me and Kyle both felt that the lower, like, I hate to say the lower tiers because it's not really lower tiers. It's just because there's not enough Overwatch League teams out there, and there's got to be a starting place somewhere. But there just wasn't enough coverage. Like, I mean, to throw a name out, started off. I've been following him through Open Division. He started off on Prestige Worldwide, won Open Division Season 1. They got picked up by Rockets. He moved on to coach NRG and just got signed to be an analyst for the Florida Mayhem. So it's literally the path to pro. He went from player to coach to the big leagues. And he was one of my first interviews on my old show. So being able to cover and talk to guys like you and, any of the players coming up, it's phenomenal to get the little bit of info that we can help get out there to kind of push your guys's, career and, info to maybe somebody that's trying to listen and sign you guys.
Yeah, for sure. I also help anyone interested in, trying to get into esports, Overwatch, Open Division, Contenders teams, always looking, always need more staff, people are interested in coaching, and any players that are like trying to get themselves out there, just get on teams and play games,
Oh yeah, definitely.
The path to pro is very real.
Cool. And then kind of to finish it off, where can people find you to like follow you on Twitter? Or do you stream on Twitch? Stuff like that.
I am on Twitter at Ash J Long. I don't really stream. I have a stream, and sometimes I'll play really horrible games on it. Don't play unless you want to see like some plat support main play some Overwatch. You can find me on ChooChooOW on Twitch. But that's it, I think. That's the only places you can find me. Join the Envision Discord. That's a good place. We want everyone to join the Envision Discord. It's a fan Discord, so we have chats. We announce anything the team are doing, stuff like that.
Oh, and do you guys have a Discord link for that, or is it just
yeah?
I'll get that, and I'll make sure that that's in the show notes for everybody that downloads the audio version, and I'll put it in the YouTube version. Anything else?
No, I think that's it, really. Thank you guys.
Again, thank you. Like that. this has been awesome talking with you.
Yeah.
Best of luck this weekend. Have fun, do work, bring back the trophy, make everybody proud that's Envision fans.
Hell yeah.
But with that, that's going to wrap up the night. You can find the show on Twitter at Blackwatch Report. There's no O in report. You can email the show blackwatchreport@gmail.com. You can follow the show on Twitch, twitch.tv/blackwatchreport. Record our live normal show Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern. Our intro music that was at the start of the show is none other than the main theme for Overwatch, and that was covered by our very own Kyle Wynn. This has been a High Noon production. You can find all of our shows over at the highnoonpodcast.com, and you can come and chat on the Discord, and that is over at discord.me/highnoonpodcast. You can find all of the hosts there from all 5 of our shows on the network. And with that, Blackwatch out.